Let me introduce you to our victim. Now, as you know by Florida law, unless the family agrees, we can't release victims' names, but they did on this one. This is Perfecta Paz. She's 74 years old. Perfecta is 5'2", 82 pounds, a slight, small lady. Even though she's not been declared in the early stages of dementia, her family thinks that she may be. So on Tuesday, October the 12th at 5:30 in the morning, we knew she was alive because her sister, who she lives with off of Deanstill Road, was preparing to go to work. The sister works at Disney. She talked to her sister and then she left, and away the sister went off to work that day. The sister gets home about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and she can't find Perfecta. Well, there is a scoundrel that's living with them, and I'll talk more about him in a minute, by the name of Araldo Paz. He's 39 years of age. When the sister comes home, Araldo is working in the yard. He is living with Perfecta and her sister at her sister's house. He had been there about 7 months. He'd been there 7 months because he'd been injured in construction in Texas and needed some help, and the family agreed for him to stay there. So the sister can't find Perfecta. Araldo says that Perfecta had too much pride and she left. She left home. Well, the sister took that on face value, thinking, well, she's got lots of friends. She talked about moving out and getting her own place. Maybe she was out looking for a home. So now it's Wednesday, about 4 o'clock in the morning. The sister wakes up to go to work. She checks to see if her sister Perfecta is in her room, and she's not. She can't find her. She goes to work, and all through the day, she's trying to call her on the cell phone. She's talking to friends. No one knows where Perfecta is, and she is remarkably worried. She gets home from work about 5 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, and not only is Perfecta still missing, but Araldo's gone. He's gone. He's taken off in this vehicle. All of his clothes and belongings are gone. So Araldo's at large, driving this 1999 beige Toyota Camry with a Texas tag, PTC 9735. She immediately, at 5:47, notifies the sheriff's office. So now it's Wednesday late afternoon. As you know, we get the call at 5:47. It starts to get dark now, about 6:30-ish, but we're out there looking. We've got aviation, drones, canines. We're on the side of the road because with the initial information that we receive, we believe that maybe she's wandered off. So we search the woods. It's out in a wooded area. We search the sides of the road. We search the wood. We can't find her. We try to contact Araldo on his cell phone. He's not answering. Can't find him. So now Thursday comes around and we go back and look some more. One of our ag detectives, this particular home site is about 1.5 acres, 1 1/3, 1.5 acres. So one of our ag deputies starts back at the house and goes, okay, maybe she found a break in the fence because the yard's fenced. So he's starting and he's walking the fence line looking where a slight in stature elderly female could get through the fence. As he's walking through the fence, he steps into a soft area. And he goes, something suspicious with that. So he gets post hole diggers and he digs a pilot hole and pulls out a woman's slipper. The woman's slipper he pulls out of the ground matches the description of the shoes that Perfecta was last seen wearing. So obviously our homicide team gets there and they start to excavate what we now know is a gravesite. I talked to the ag detective that located this soft spot, and he is not only a very experienced ag detective, he is a rancher and a farmer in his own right. And he said that if you just looked at the piece of property, it was up in the bushes. They had planted all kinds of fruit trees and all kinds of bushes, and there were natural shrubs. He said you couldn't tell that a body had been buried there. He said it was smoothed back out. The chickens, they had chickens, had come to this fresh piece of fresh piece of property and had pecked around, because when you stir up the ground, you stir up insects. And he said, looking at the ground, you would have never known that it was a grave, but I happened to step in it, and the ground was soft. Our detectives worked through the night last night, unearthing Perfecta, who was deceased. She died a violent death. We're looking for Araldo. Let me tell you about him. He, like Perfecta and her sister, are from Honduras. Perfecta and her sister are here legally from Honduras. Araldo is not. He's illegal. He's an illegal alien who has no legal standing in this country. He's been here since 2003. So it's important to point out that, of course, that Perfecta adopted him when he was very young because his natural mother passed. When he was about 6 or 7, Perfecta wanted to come to the United States, according to the sister, and Araldo didn't want to come, so he stayed back in Honduras with his father, his natural father, until he came to the United States in about 2003. So what we know now is that sometime after the sister went to work at Disney, Araldo violently murdered the lady that adopted him so many years before and buried her in a shallow grave. She was about 1.5 feet under the earth. And he fled with all of his clothes and belongings. He spent from 2003 until about 7 months ago, as far as we can determine at this point in time, in Texas, when he was injured in construction. They agreed for him to come here so that they could take care of him during his rehabilitation. But about 2 months ago, Araldo and his aunt, who adopted him as her child, had an argument over money, and she said she wanted her money back. It is reported to us by witnesses that Perfecta said at the time that Araldo pulled a gun on her and threatened her. But the disturbance calmed down, and they remained living together. So why did Araldo 2 months later kill his aunt, who was his adoptive mother? Well, apparently Perfecta was kind of perfect in the way she wanted things done. And according to the sister, Perfecta continued to stay on Araldo. He couldn't do anything right. If you washed the car, he used too much water, too much soap, not enough water. She just nagged him and nagged him and nagged him. And apparently, according to Oraldo, from what we see in evidence, of course, we've not had the opportunity to talk with him, he finally did away with Perfecta. He has virtually no criminal history other than an illegal entry into the country in 2003 and a possession of cannabis in 2015 that was ultimately dismissed. Currently, we have outstanding warrants for Oraldo for first-degree murder, for grand theft, and for tampering with evidence. We have this fuzzy picture of the vehicle. We also have evidence and information that this vehicle was recently seen in Texas, in the greater Houston area. So he's back in the area that he fled from. We don't know if he's making his way back to Honduras, if he's got infrastructure and friends there or not. If he is, he shouldn't be too difficult to find, because he'd be the only Hispanic going south of the border when everybody else is coming north of the border. But we need to find him. There's obviously a reward out through Crime Stoppers. If someone knows his whereabouts, all you have to do is notify us. We find him with your information. You don't testify. We never know who you are. You never come to court. You make money. And we have this nasty guy who murdered his aunt and his adoptive mother locked up where he needs to be. So once again, it's an example of people that are here illegally in this country committing violent, dangerous crime. So when you tell me that a murderer like this has the right to be in this country when he comes here illegally and then murders a tiny little lady who was gracious enough, along with her sister, to not only allow him to live with them, but to help in his rehab from his injury in construction. He's just a nasty man. And he needs to be arrested quickly. After all, after you've killed one person, it makes killing the second one easier, because you can't spend but one life in prison. We need to find him quickly. Are there any questions?
They both have the same last name. Are they related by blood?
Yeah, it's his aunt.
Oh, it is.
It's his aunt, and when her sister died when he was just an infant, she adopted him. So she's the adoptive mother, but she is his aunt.
Sheriff, should we assume that he cleaned everything up so nobody could tell that there had been a struggle or murder in there?
Obviously, there were tools, because at this particular location, they had chickens, they had hogs, they had cows. It was a nice little, if you will, small farm. They had planted squash growing in the backyard. They had beautiful trees that they'd planted, fruit trees. It was a manicured, beautiful area off Dean Still Road out in the middle of God's country. And he ruined the tranquility of that place forever when he murdered Perfecta and buried her in a shallow grave right at the northeast corner, just inside the fence area.
Is there any indication of what he did?
Yes, we know how he killed her. We're not releasing that at this time, because certainly only he knows, and we know how he violently murdered her, and we don't want that out until we have the opportunity to talk to him.
So when was the last time he was seen in Polk City?
The last time he was seen was when Perfecta, the sister went to work, and on Wednesday, October the 13th, and Perfecta's still missing. We know by the circumstances we have at this time, she was murdered on Tuesday while the sister was at work. The last time that he was seen was on 27. That's the last photograph we have of it on Highway 27. So he moved out of the house. He was at the house on Wednesday morning at about 4 or 5 o'clock when the sister went to work because she heard him there in the house. He had moved out after she went to work on that day.